When I was a kid, we used to go swimming all the time, swimming hole. And my brothers jumped in the deep end and neither one of them could swim. Well, I couldn't swim that well, but I jumped in and pulled both of them out, saved both of them. And I would have drowned to keep them alive. I went back to Vietnam. See, I'd already been to Vietnam. My first tour was at Khe Sanh, met my brother there, and my mother asked me, "Why are you going back to Vietnam? Why are you going back?" She had a brother killed in Korea, and she didn't like the idea of me going over there. And I said, "There's something I've got to do. I haven't done it yet, but there's something I've got to do."
Raymond Clausen enlisted in the Marine Corps in 1966, where the Louisiana native was trained as a helicopter mechanic.
I got over 3,000 combat flight hours in Vietnam as a crew chief, a total of 98 air medals for Vietnam, which is about the most I've ever heard of that anyone had.
On January 31st, 1970, Clausen was the crew chief of one of 3 Marine choppers deploying troops in an area near Da Nang in South Vietnam. Clausen's crew and Huey gunship escorts were searching for enemy activity in the area.
This particular day, on 31 January of '70, the pilots in the Huey saw some bunkers in a tree line. And it was a nice grassy field where we were directed to land. Well, all 3 helicopters sat down on the ground and all the troops disembarked the helicopters. We lifted up and then flew about 1,500 foot above the LZ. And then they started receiving fire from the tree line. And when they started receiving this fire, they sort of scattered out and were running in different areas to avoid the fire. At that time, they started stepping on mines. They started tripping mines. So the pilot asked me at that time, he said, "Well, Mike, do you want to go back in there and get these people out?" And I said, "Well, sir, considering we put them in there, I think it's only right that we should get them out." And he said, "Well, I'll follow your lead. Tell me where you want me to land."
As the pilot hovered above the minefield, Clausen leaned out the open side door and skillfully guided the helicopter to a safe landing area.
So I ran off the helicopter with a stretcher and threw it on the ground and making it taut and helping them put the body in a stretcher, and we were going to carry it back to the helicopter. When the radio operator pulled my helmet off my ear and hollered at me, said, "Don't you know you're in the middle of a minefield?" And I sort of flew back to the helicopter, not even touching the ground again. And as I was on the ramp, looking out, they were carrying a stretcher toward the helicopter. When one of the men carrying the stretcher stepped on a mine, and the concussion and the shrapnel just knocked them all off their feet. And I immediately told my pilot, I said, "Sir, I'm going off the plane." And he hadn't got to the point where he was telling me to stay on the plane. Well, I was already disconnected and I was gone. I picked up the ones that couldn't walk, and the ones that could walk sort of followed in my footsteps. We did all this under fire. And when I got these people on the helicopter, we had to lift off and hover over to another area where another gaggle of Marines had gotten together.
Clausen made 6 trips into the minefield under heavy fire and would be credited with the saving of 18 fellow Marines. Only when he was certain that all the Marines were safely aboard did he signal the pilot to lift off.
And of course, Sergeant Major was just happened to be there because he was my port gunner. He was there, so he looked at me and said, "You know, Marine, that was the bravest thing I ever saw anybody do in my life." I had been in a real bad car accident when I returned home. And I was home recovering from my car accident. And for exercise, I used to walk from my house to the front gate and check the mail, which was about a block. And so I used to do that every morning or around mealtime. And there was a letter in the mailbox addressed to me from a congressman. What's the congressman writing me for? So I just tore it open and looked at it. And he said, "I'm proud to let you know," it was Congressman John Rarick at that time, "I'm proud to acknowledge that you are to receive the Medal of Honor. The date hasn't been set yet." And I was so excited, so I actually crawled from the mailbox to the house. I couldn't believe it was going on. I could hardly walk anyway, but after I read this, I was just, huh? And I just sort of crawled. I was so excited. Well, Richard Nixon presented me the medal in June of '71, and I was the only enlisted helicopter crew chief ever to get the Medal of Honor. Like the old saying, I think it was a Marine saying, nobody knows where it came from, death before dishonor. And that's where I firmly believe in everything, is death before dishonor.